Welcome to the 10th anniversary of REIMAGINE 2021. Presented by Mousebelt. Coming up next.
Hi, I'm Hilmar. I work on a project called Gelato. And yeah, I'm happy to be here at REIMAGINE.
Hello, and welcome to REIMAGINE 2021. This is our 1-year anniversary and 10th edition of our conference. We host these events as part of our monthly series, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above that's happening in crypto. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the Mousebelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator or providing development support to a number of growing projects, as well as education within the Mousebelt University program. Our main objectives and goals are pretty simple. It's increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. We seek to educate our audience, everybody that's tuning in, on whether you're in the space or not in the space, just by helping everybody understand crypto's real impact. So again, thank you all for tuning in. I'm joined here by Hilmar, co-founder of Gelato Network, a legendary member. How you doing, man? Thanks for taking your time out of your day.
Thanks for having me.
So where are you calling from? Where are you based?
Yeah, I'm currently with our whole team in the north of France in Normandy in a place called Les Touquets. And yeah, we're doing our first in-person company retreat here. We started Gelato during COVID, completely remote, hired everyone remotely. And now we kind of was this conference back in Paris and we all met for the first time, which was pretty cool. And yeah, so northern France it is.
First things first, I want to touch on 2 points. One, hiring remote, working remote. And then two, you're in Paris for ECC. Let's go towards a company. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, projects right now that are tuning in, checking it out. All this content is free, right? Post-conference, we put it on YouTube. And everybody's trying to maybe switch careers, right? What are they going to do? Web 2.0, Web 3.0, blockchain's this new thing. But that's crazy. Hiring remote, how was that experience? I guess, obviously, have you done that before? And how did that journey take place?
Yeah. So funnily enough, I actually did it before. I used to work for 1.5 years for a company called Superside. They are like a YC startup where you can access kind of like development or design resources. And they are this outsourcing company, so to say, and make it just super easy to use. And I think it was probably one of the first remote only startups that went through YC, and it was already back in 2016, I think. And I was working from Berlin. The guys were sitting in San Francisco, some in Oslo, other ones all around the world. And there we kind of already, I was doing a lot of hiring back then, and then we already scaled the team up to hundreds of people, which we had to hire remotely. We had this whole automated process that filtered out 90% of the candidates, and we spoke to only 1% of them. And so I was kind of used to that and knew it works. Though of course there are a lot of challenges that you have to overcome. But the good thing is that you kind of by default plug into this global talent pool. Yeah. Right. And so we started in Berlin, and the last person that got on board on Gelato, he's actually the only one who lives in Berlin. All the others are in New York or Paris or Warsaw and Shanghai. Right. So we kind of we hire global, and that's pretty cool.
Do you like it? Do you think if you had to choose remote, kind of operations, and I assume you have to be really organized. We're also remote. We're all scattered all over the place. And like you said, you do have to put processes in place. We leverage various applications. to stay organized, routine as much as possible in terms of logistics and real-time kind of communication. Do you prefer kind of this remote, strategy, or do you like the old school, or a hybrid, I guess?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think they have all the advantages and disadvantages. I think the kind of like the freedom that remote work offers you as a team and as an employee or as an employer is amazing, because you can work from wherever, you can travel around, you can visit your girlfriend, visit your boyfriend, right? So, and you can still work on the train or whatever, you're not bound. I think this is here to stay. I think everything will be remote first. But I do see a lot of value in this in-person meetings. Like yesterday night, we are at some point doing a token set in the future. And we were sitting down yesterday, the whole team here in our living room, and for the first time, really discussing how we all personally feel about stuff, and how we want it to be, not from money or something, just what we think Gelato means for every one of us. And this kind of sometimes gets a bit left out when it comes to remote work. You have these meetings, they're scheduled half an hour, then done, right? There's no too much chit-chatting. And I think this chit-chatting also is very important to feel out everyone and how everyone's kind of feeling. So that's I think remote first is the way to go, but because I think it's much more productive. I get so much more shit done when I'm alone working. For sure. I think most of the team feels the same way, but then you have to have these sort of get-togethers, or you should have a place where everyone that wants to meet can meet.
Definitely.
And yeah, I think it's a hybrid, which is probably the best.
Awesome. That's good to know. And we're coming out of this COVID, right? So I wanted to ask you that because I haven't met I haven't talked to anybody. Everybody that I've talked to has already been formed. Obviously, we make hires, past, but you guys started out remote, hiring remote, and putting all that in place. So I think a lot of us are accustomed to it, and you kind of get used to it over a period of time. Tell us about your journey, right? We've had over 500 speakers come, and a wide range of leaders, of projects, of different roles from different teams. And everybody has a cool, or not a cool, but a unique story of how they got into blockchain and fell down the rabbit hole. What was your experience, and how did you land into the crypto space?
Yeah. So, I studied finance as my undergrad, and I was always into stocks, investing, monetary politics and stuff. I had some internships when I was younger, and I literally just were trading during those internships, and I didn't do any work. And they didn't like me that much back then. Yeah. I was a shitty intern. Yeah. But I didn't go into I knew about Bitcoin and stuff, but it didn't catch my attention that much. I don't know. But which caught my attention was 2016 when the first DAO launched. So the DAO back then, right, on Ethereum. And I just came out of my first couple of startups. I realized how shitty companies can be, how much politics there can be, and how many middlemen there are. And I thought this is just a gigantic opportunity to reform organizations and how you can coordinate people. And I was super geeky into it. I created this blog that wrote about it. I went on the rabbit hole, installed a Mist browser locally. I had to run my local full node to kind of interact with all the other stuff. So I went into the rabbit hole and was still studying, and was living together with my best friend, Louis. He's now the co-founder of Gelato. And I kind of took him on a journey and said, no, you will also now learn about crypto. And he had no choice. He lived with me. And then I was okay, I will just I won't stop talking to you about it, and you will just do it as well. And then he joined in. And then we met this partner from a consultancy, a big consultancy in Berlin in a university lecture that he gave, and he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to kind of found a blockchain specific consultancy, one of the first ones in Berlin. And he knew that we are very much into the tech and the details there. We basically just approached him after the lecture, and then we ended up working together with him and kind of building up this company with him and leading a lot of really interesting projects with high profile companies in the German speaking areas, where we basically on private and permission networks build very sophisticated products. But as you know, that was kind of like the hype back then, but it didn't really catch on because permission blockchains suck. But it was interesting. You learned a lot. The tech was pretty similar, but just not public. But then we got bored. And so we started hacking on like public stuff, right? We started going to hackathons. I went to a bunch, won a couple of prizes there. And then, we got into touch with a project called Gnosis in Berlin. They are doing prediction markets and decentralized exchanges. And we were tasked to build an application for them that basically automates trade executions on one of their platforms. And this was pretty hard because you had to build up this whole back-end bot infrastructure from scratch that will kind of like monitor everything, and then when certain conditions are met, execute transactions on this auction protocol. And when we were doing that, we realized this is a real pain to build, and it takes a lot of time. And what you end up with is this shitty centralized system that you run, and if it goes down, then your decentralized application goes down, and it's not that decentralized. So that's kind of like how Gelato was born, because Gelato, we realized, okay, there's this just very basic infrastructure piece missing that enables developers to automate certain transactions on Ethereum and easily without having to rebuild everything from scratch every single time. And this is basically what we kind of identified back then. And then we showed a couple of people our idea. Then we received some grants from projects like Metacartel or also Gnosis. We bootstrapped our way to like a working product, which we showed them, and we got our first couple of customers. And then suddenly investors started approaching us, and we were like, okay, then we realized, okay, we have so much stuff to do that two of us will never be able to handle it. So then we ended up raising a round. And then, we hired people, and then we raised another round. We hired more people, and now we're raising another round.
Great.
Hiring more people. That's kind of like how it goes. And this is how we end up now here with like a team of 12 people. Got the initial traction with our product. Of course, still a long way ahead of us. But this is kind of like how you end up hacking on a project, and then you suddenly have a company with employees.
I like that journey, man. I like that story for a few reasons. One, you identified a problem. Two, you kind of stuck with it, right, and evolved and innovated, and try to streamline it for others. So let's talk into like Gelato Network. Appreciate you like giving us, prefacing like how you got into it. So what is Gelato Network for those that are just coming into the scene? Explain kind of what you guys are focused on.
Yeah. So an easy example of how to visualize the problem on hand is like with banks, when your money is in your bank, right, you're used to just like go there and say, okay, every month I want to transfer $2,000 to my mother, for example, right? And then your bank will kind of like just transfer automatically the funds for you, right? But in like crypto, you are your bank. The money is in your wallet. So if you don't transfer this money to your mother every month, like no one will, because the only one who has the keys are you. Then of course you can give someone the keys, but then they own your funds, right? So that kind of defeats the purpose. So how do you do it? Smart contracts is basically the dumb answer to that. But what you would have to do is you would have to write a contract that basically says, hey, every month I can withdraw $100, $2,000 from your account and send it to your mother. But if no one is there to actually send a transaction to that contract or basically execute a smart contract, nothing will happen, because even though some people think smart contracts are like autonomous, they are not really. They have to be executed. They have to be called up basically by someone who says, hey, I want to execute a logic. And this someone is either yourself or it's a bot. And basically what all the projects that have certain smart contract functions or certain logics that have to kind of like repeatedly or recurringly or conditionally occur at certain times, like sending money every month or updating prices or executing trades or refinancing loans, all these things are automated by bots. And what these projects had to do until now was they all had to build up their own. They'd have to build, maintain, and run their own bot infrastructure from scratch, which took them like weeks. And then what they ended up with, as I explained at the beginning, they were kind of like the only ones running it, and their app is super centralized. And then if they want to decentralize it, they have to convince a lot of people to run them, and they have to give them a lot of money for them actually to be incentivized to run them, because why would they run it if they're not really financially incentivized to do it, right? So basically what Gelato is a decentralized network of bots that anyone can just task to automate any smart contracts on Ethereum. And in practice, a lot of teams in DeFi use us to automate certain aspects of the application on Ethereum or on other networks like Polygon, for example. Examples of that include, for example, InstaDepp use us for like a variety of use cases, for example, to automatically refinance maker debt positions to Aave before they get liquidated. Then they use us to automate liquidity provision management on Uniswap v3. Then they use us to actually bridge funds from mainnet to Polygon and kind of like only do one transaction on mainnet and then have all the other transactions on Polygon automatically executed by Gelato. And then there are projects like Keeper DAO, which offer like also debt management. And what they use Gelato for is they automatically manage the debt position. When prices go up, you go more leverage. When prices go down, you kind of pay back the debt. And then there are like easy examples, like a project uses us to automate salary payments every month. So they sell like every month, they transfer like 20 salaries to their employees. And normally you would have to do like multi-signatures. All the management team has to come in, and it takes like an hour. It's a pain. And you can just set it once and it automatically transfers. So these sort of things, basically, development teams are using us, and they save a lot of time because they don't have to deal with the infrastructure. They don't get calls at 3 a.m. when the stuff breaks and they have to fix it. So they basically outsource the DevOps of the application.
And how easy is it to integrate this, right? If projects are watching this interview and they're like, wow, this kind of, we kind of need this integration, this kind of support. What does it entail for them to, tap into Gelato and plug it in?
Yeah, it's depends on the use case. Obviously, there are like easier use cases, more difficult use cases. In smart contracts, devil is always in the detail. But most of the use case, 90% of them can be super easily integrated. We have this one contract which you basically can just call, and you can create a task. And a task consists just of an address of a contract you want to get called, and then a payload, some data you want to use to call that smart contract. For example, send 2,000 DAI every month, and then the contract and the function where you want to call it. And you basically put this into this contract, and then Gelato bots will pick it up. And they will just always, if they can execute it, they will execute it. So you have like a condition in your smart contract which says, okay, only every month. And then every time they can execute it, they will execute it. And how they will get paid is, let's say the transaction costs you $10. Then like the $10 is the transaction fee on Ethereum. What you have to pay the Gelato bots is basically, for example, $11. So kind of like a 10% margin on top of the costs. And this one goes basically as a profit to the network.
Yeah, no, great. And your this solution is for Ethereum. And you said Polygon, which is kind of a layer 2 off of Ethereum. Is this kind of EVM compatible? Is this compatible or interoperable with other chains in general?
So at the moment, Gelato is the system is built to support all EVM-based chains. We are basically, first of all, deploying them on those. But it is its own kind of like separate network. So it is compatible. It is theoretically compatible with all networks, and we already got some people in the Cosmos or Polkadot ecosystem and kind of like ask us, hey, can we get it there? And we already got like clones that just also like they call themselves something with ice cream and go to like Polkadot and do Gelato. So this is just how this market goes. It can work everywhere, but of course it needs a bit of tweaking to make it work for something like Solana, for example. So at the moment we are focused on the EVM based chains.
And just from like a fundamental like a view, how do you see Gelato and these money Legos? Like, is this kind of the innovation of crypto and blockchain for anybody to pick and choose, and composability around different protocols, different technologies to come up with something new, right? So how do you does that excite you in terms of like what you can do in this space?
Yeah, so how you can kind of like think of Gelato as we are middleware, we are in the infrastructure stack, or how you want to call it. And like I always see it as like you have Ethereum and smart contracts in here, and they kind of make sure certain logic and certain state is persistent. Then you have the graph, which makes it easy to kind of like query all that information and the data that is stored in Ethereum, make it accessible to your users. And then there's, for example, Gelato, which is there to just automate. It's not like the graph reads from the blockchain, and Gelato basically writes to the blockchain. So we are basically executing transactions on behalf of users. And together with like these three components, and you can take even more, you basically enable developers to build what I call serverless applications. So applications without having to run any server yourself. You just put out a React app hosted somewhere, and like all the pieces are there running. You don't have to maintain or build or anything. You can just go crazy and focus on the best UX possible. And what Gelato just does, it makes it so much easier to build complex financial services that require these sort of automation behaviors, like auction protocols or subscription payments, or all of these use cases. You basically save a lot of time, and building an application with Gelato just makes it so much easier for you to do, because you can just skip this whole unnecessary DevOps part that you would otherwise have to do and have to spend like weeks on. And so it just opens up it makes developers just iterate much faster on their products.
And I kind of had this question a little further down, but you're kind of leading me into it. Like, in terms of developers and bringing in talent, right? Web 2.0 native, Web 3.0 devs. How do you, and you guys are contributing to streamlining like the process for developers to just focus on, innovating. Where are we? Like, or what are your thoughts in terms of, we're at in the space of, impacting or encouraging more developers to come into this space? Like, are we in a, like you said, you're building infrastructure, you guys were building something from scratch every time. And so they like, it's kind of snowballing, right? So hopefully as time passes, for developers, whether you're 2.0 dev or 3.0 dev or looking to, for a new challenge or something to build, are we making it easier for talent to come into the space?
100%. Like, I don't know, like when I was first starting to build like with Solidity and Ethereum back then, it was a nightmare. Like, yeah, Solidity itself. Like we actually, like Louis, my co-founder, he found some bugs in Solidity. So we like that Solidity wasn't perfect, right? There was a lot of weird things happening, and now this is easier. Error messages is easier. Tooling like Hardhead so much easier. Like building these applications is 10 times easier than it was 3 years ago. And like the time to market for building new applications is also probably a quarter of what it used to be like 2 years ago. So I think if you just look at hackathon submissions, or like see how many forks and copies of projects there are on other chains, you see how easy it is for them to just like take it, deploy it there, and be done with it, right? So from a technical perspective, it's much easier. Like the hard parts these days for most projects is like the business development, I would say. Like, hey, how can you compete against all these like people that just clone and copy and then have a lot of money, because money is also cheap, right? So this is more the question these days. The technical stuff it seems like it gets easier and easier.
Which impacts the UI UX. So like, how do you see UI UX? It seems like you guys are focused on a little bit. And not only that, like in general in the DeFi space, right? It can be cumbersome, and we all are aware of it. And we're working towards that. So how do you see kind of the UI UX, evolving, getting better? Do you see it getting better? Is it going to take some time?
Yeah, it's actually at the moment getting worse because of these bridges and these other networks, right? And then suddenly you have to switch networks, and you send money to this bridge, and the money is gone, or the bridge takes ages. So at the moment, like we are like the applications are a bit fractionalized on all these different networks. So this actually makes it worse, I would say. But like most of the complexities around Ethereum and stuff was from the fact, for me at least, that it's expensive, and like block times are long, and confirmations like take ages. And if you go to these faster chains, it's super easy, right? Like you press a button, you wait 2 seconds, and then it's done, right? It's like 10x better than it was before. But of course, you have to transition to this network. But I think now people are coming in and they are like native to these layer 2s, and this is such a game changer. And what we are basically doing to make the UX better is we help transitioning this movement of funds between these protocols. So a good example is you can, for example, without having to change any networks on your MetaMask, so you can say, hey, I want to move my funds from mainnet to Polygon. I want to do like a dollar cost averaging strategy there, where I every 10 minutes sell like $100,000 worth of my Y token, but I want to execute like 10 trades, which would cost me, I don't know, $200 on mainnet, and here it just cost me $1, and then I want to send the funds back to mainnet and have it in my wallet again, and you just have to send one transaction, and Gelato basically just does the execution on the other network. This is kind of like the cross-chain automation we are getting in now. And so I think that's just, you will probably will end up like you never actually leave your network, or you don't feel like you leave your network. You're just on mainnet, but like on the back end, some transaction happen like on Matic or whatever, and it's all abstracted from you.
This cross-chain automation, is that what you've always been focusing, or is that like a new feature or a new like kind of subset of like the overall development?
So this was always on the roadmap. So we kind of like anticipated always that there's this multi-chain universe, and some networks prioritizing this over that, and some users there and here. And there was always this question, okay, how can we move money between them? And there are already applications that specialize on providing liquidity across these networks, right? And like, what do I expect them to do? Like run bots on each of these networks and like here and there and monitor this and then cross, like this shit is complex. And so basically what we want to do is we just provide them with like one middleware across all these networks, and you can just like go across them and pass Gelato to do it. And of course it's getting more important every kind of like day. And we focused until February this year more on like one network, layer 2, layer 1. But since then we realized, since the kind of like Polygon picked up especially, we realized, okay, we have to already now invest resources in making it cross network. And already one use case with InstaLab live, and I think already other projects came to us and say, hey, can we execute these transactions across multiple networks? Are you the guys I can do it with? And yeah, so we are working on this.
How do you see, I was reading something and it was kind of interesting. You know, there's a layer 2 supporters, layer 1s, right, that are focused on layer 1s like your Solanas. How do layer 2s provide an added benefit? Is that a solution to some of the scalability? It definitely supports it. But in the long run, like, is it just going to be a bunch of layer 2s, linking up to layer 1s? Are layer 1s going to need to step their game up or compete, right, in terms of like Solana? They're focusing on more of like not hardware, but like compute, right, globally to like do these transactions. So yeah, what's your thought on like layer 1 versus layer 2? Like, is that kind of needed to kind of scale the technology more?
Yeah, I often I try to always look at through the lens of users and how they kind of like see it, or how they want to experience this, and what do they want, right? They want, what is awesome about blockchains is the composability. Like you can do everything on one network, right? The world computer. We know it kind of like didn't work with Ethereum, but it worked, but it was expensive. This is amazing, right? I think so. What I think is, so this would be the best, having like one layer 1 that can facilitate everything, right? And you can have your gaming.
Is that possible?
I'm a strong believer, and I always think everything is possible. It's just a matter of when it's possible. Totally. And I don't think it will be possible at the right time, and it will probably will be possible at some point in the future when other things already got adopted. So I'm a strong believer in not the best tech wins, but the most widely adopted one wins. And what is ready right now today is like layer 1 Ethereum, and layer 2s coming up. They're ready, and they already support a lot of stuff. Like I personally, what I did spend my let's say the evening on is horse racing on Polygon. I sat there and I made I created a horse and I did horse racing on Polygon. It was super cheap, right? And it's fun. And I gamed on Polygon, right? So this is already reality. And as long as you keep the friction between the different networks as short as possible, I do believe in this hypothesis of this kind of like, you have Manhattan, which is Ethereum, and then here are all the transactions on all the high value arbitrage opportunities. All the whales will compete, and transaction costs $100. And then you go to the suburbs, and here you got the gaming suburb, and here you got the whatever suburb, right? And the closer they are together, the more efficient and more composable they are, and the further they go away from another, the more latency you have when you want to transact between them. But like a gaming NFT maybe never needs to interact with MakerDAO, right? So they don't need to be close to each other. So I believe layer 1, layer 2 works. I think it's ready, and it will probably be adopted over something else.
And you mentioned in the beginning, like private chains were, not the place to be. Why was that? We're talking about some of these issues on public chains. I think obviously the innovation's there, and that's where it's going to live. But just wanted to get your thoughts. At one point it was all blockchain and enterprise, as you guys were involved in, and these hyper ledgers of the world, and just the option for enterprises to choose public or private. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, because you mentioned at the beginning, like, why was it? What are your thoughts on private chains?
Yeah. So what's the cool thing? Like, what's the real cool thing about public blockchains and smart contracts, right? The real cool thing for me is like having two guys like the InstaDepp founders. These are like, we work together quite close with them. They are like beginning 20s, manage like $1 billion protocol. And they built that stuff from probably like their apartment in India. And they didn't have to ask anyone's permission to access liquidity in Aave, Compound, Uniswap, whatever, right? They could just build a massive hedge fund, so to say, from scratch in their dorm. Now, this is a paradigm shift. That was never possible before. Yeah. Every bored college kid can build sophisticated financial products now. Yeah. And they are doing it every day. I see it. So this is for me the real innovation. And this is just not like, you don't have that in permission networks. It's permissioned. You can't just go there and do cool stuff. So they don't like, who want, like, the rate of innovation, rate of talent you attract to these networks is just super limited. It's just these companies, and these big companies, they are not known for like being super innovative. They might just be a bit more efficient here and there, a bit more transparent maybe, but that's not a 10x improvement in my opinion.
And you're totally right in terms of the innovation aspect. And not only that, like, we've been in the space for quite some time, but at one point, right, they were trying to integrate it, implement it in the enterprise front. That was the big push. But that wasn't where the innovation was going to come from. Like, we're plugging in some new technology into old legacy, like traditional stuff. Maybe it helps a transition from, legacy to hybrid, and then to fully public or whatever it is. And that's just kind of on the enterprise side as a solution, as an architecture. And then remove that. Yeah. And it's just all public, like DeFi's taking off, NFTs, right? Like you said, the 10 times return. And so, no, that's cool. And like, and one other thing, you brought up like users and adoption. And I've asked this in other interviews too, like, how important is community, right? In terms of, one thing in blockchain is like the communication between protocol or project and like everybody that's following it. You're pretty much held accountable. It seems like you guys built something. And the reason why we got into the business too, on the accelerator front, was because of the whole raising off of white papers in early 2017 and like under delivering, not building anything, scams, frauds. But there's a lot of teams that like knew how to like leverage the tech, and we wanted to support them. And we knew how hard it was. And so we leveraged our engineering team to get them building and stuff like that. How important, and it seems like you guys are pretty active with community participation. You guys are writing blogs. Like, how important is that for your guys' like growth?
It's tremendously important. And it's a fun part, right? So it's not like we are building this company and it's like behind shut doors. Like everything we do is as public as it possibly can. Maybe like if we experiment with some code, we have it in like private repos first, but then we publicize it at some point.
For sure.
But yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter what you build in crypto if you don't get the community around it and the users, and also to spread the word to other projects. Like it doesn't. There's no benefit. So it's kind of like the community is probably. I think the community is more important than the product by far, and you have to build communities here. Like that's what got me excited with DAOs and stuff. You can like let communities govern protocols, and this is also what like Gelato should be. Like Gelato should be this infrastructure that is not owned by us, our company, or whoever. It should slowly at some point be diffused into the community and the users, and be like this protocol that incentivizes new users to come in. And then it's kind of like a snowball effect. Every like new users, new developers using it, and the new ones get some tokens, they get some ownership, and this just goes on forever and ever. And you have this protocol managed by those that use it the most, and they make the decisions around it and what should happen to it. And if they're not fine with it, then maybe you can fork it and implement your own thing, right? So this is the beauty. We are not here to compete and make the most valuable company. We are here to just create the best community around our vision and the problem we want to solve, and get passionate people on board. And I think the community just gives you so much benefits in terms of traction. They just talk to other people, and then suddenly you get this huge spike in users, and they go to other projects and just be your ambassador. So I think it's amazing.
And I asked that because you brought that up. Even the DAO, which you started talking about right now, what are some of the risks? Like, do you think DAOs can really be scaled? For those watching, it's the governance mechanism it's what makes it decentralized. There's a bunch of stakeholders, a bunch of various stakeholders within the protocol itself, which is not just token holders. It's the developers, it's the the validators, the nodes, everybody that's involved. So are DAOs scalable in terms of, we're moving like smaller communities within these projects, but our long-term vision is really global, right? There's global computer, these projects, touching various aspects of other, projects that integrate them and implement them. What are some of the risks? Do you think there's some risks there? Like, can we get everybody voting? Like, is it going to get centralized in terms of like delegating votes? Kind of like how we have our voting system here in the States or in other countries.
Yeah. So like, I think it's a myth that people will just vote on everything, right? So you see the voting turnout in all these DAOs, like just basically the core developers vote, maybe here and there another guy, an investor, and that's it, right? So, but that's fine. And like in companies also, these decisions, like people go to one meeting a year and they just vote on a new management board maybe, and then that's it, right? So you don't need that constant participation in every small detail. What's much more important is to kind of like a elective system where you have these delegates that you just say, hey, this guy, I like what he's talking about, I like his ideas, he probably knows what's best, I delegate my vote to him, and then he does the decisions. And if I somehow find out he did something that I don't like, then I remove my delegated votes from him and I give it to someone else, right? And I think this person might be the better off making decisions or influencing decisions. So I think it will be like that. You have some electives, they get elected, and they will vote and they will make the decisions. And the community is just there if like decisions are being made that are wrong, and the most people feel like they are wrong, and these ones get attention, and then there's a lot at stake, and then the community comes together and makes a decision. But they should have the power to come in. It's not, that's the difference, right? Now they can actually come in and make the decision, but they don't have to, right? If everything works fine, they can just chill and sit down. So I think that's kind of scalable. And there are and it shouldn't. It doesn't have to be other, like, attention is much, like, it's far too scarce in just to expect people to vote. They have so much other stuff to do. Like, they will rather spend their time on Twitter.
No, cool. Thanks for touching on that. And how now you guys you don't have a token yet, right?
Yep.
And how do you envision your guys' like governance working, or what's the token going to be used for? Is that public, or can we talk about that?
Yeah. We have a white paper out. So yeah, we've been working on Gelato for 2 years, no token. I get a lot of when tokens in our community chat on Telegram. And the vision always with Gelato was to have the community and the users and developers that use it be the owners of the system. And in order to do that, we have to diffuse the kind of like power that we still keep as a core development team right now into this community. And we will do so via the gel token that will be released. And first and foremost, it will firstly be a governance token. So basically important decisions are being made by all participants together. And what will happen practically is probably like we will make a lot of decisions at the beginning, which is fine because, trust me, I'm very long-term incentivized to see Gelato succeed. And I will only vote on stuff that actually makes sense and helps Gelato. But everyone can just come in and vote against it if they want to, right? And then the second functionality is staking. Like at the moment, these bots are basically, they have social reputation at stake. So we know them, we work together with selected parties. And basically, if they would misbehave, we would kick them, but they don't because they are like professionals, right? But soon we will open the system up more. So, and we will have the DAO take over this whitelisting process of who can run a bot. And then these bots will also be held accountable by, they will have stake in the system. They have to basically have gel token. They will have to stake it. And then if they misbehave or censor people or try to front run or back run transactions, which is completely common at the moment from bots, right? Then they can be held accountable for doing so. So it kind of like tries to change the incentive of bots that want to extract as much value as possible from users to a system where they want to kind of like retain all that value at users, and they can be held accountable if they're not. And this is kind of like what we try to achieve with that. And we have a much more other, like a lot of other things in plan in the future, but this is basically the first two functionalities. And yeah, we'll do a public token sale at some point in the next month, and yeah, we'll announce it pretty soon. But yeah, it's been quite a long while to figure everything out, and we wanted to get first adoption first, prove our point, and now we can leverage this to get a closer community contribution into Gelato.
Where you're at now, you probably raised about 500 million in 2017. in like 2 minutes, right? People were raising off of nothing, and it's just it's crazy. And when we talk about projects now, of you know, having revenue or having users, having an MVP, a functional product, right? Like it's all matured.
Yeah, and like the problem is that just a lot of money in the space, and probably there's still a lot of projects that can still raise out of a website, and they do, and investors just also, like, it's a process. They need to be educated. Like, you shouldn't just give your money to some random person. You need to, like, we do monthly videos of where we talk about Gelato, where we talk about the challenges, the advantages, and like the improvements. And if you like, with us, you only have to go to YouTube, check out the last 4 videos, and you already get a sense of what's happening, right? And you get like a whole team with faces that are out there trying to work, right? So if you see something like that, is already maybe a good indicator that something good. And if they are like anonymous people that just vanish the next day, maybe it could also be very lucrative, but maybe also not, right?
Yeah, no, I think the times have changed. Do your own research, check out the team, and check out the community, right? The activity. If they're producing content, you know, you get some more insight than you would have in the past. A couple other things I want to talk about, and I think you've touched on in the beginning, but you were talking about kind of the bots and the automation. Talk about, like, you guys had a busy July in terms of partnering. So the Graph, Spirit Swap, Keeper DAO, Aave, like Spooky Swap. What at a high level, like outside of just the transferring of money, like you mentioned, the automation of like monthly transfers to, somebody else, you guys are also like the use cases, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Like partnering with Aave, helping users from liquidation and working with other dexes. Can you touch on just some of those things on some like limit orders and sell orders and stuff like that? It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, what most people probably still don't realize is that, like, and this is our hypothesis, is that we believe that 99, like, first of all, every smart contract, like every system that can be turned into a smart contract will be turned into a smart contract at some point, and 99% of these transactions won't be like user initiated transactions.
Yeah.
They will be like automated processes happening in the background. And so most of those transactions that happen on these networks will be automated and not kind of like manually executed. And examples of that are like, most use cases have these, and many people don't realize it because they're kind of like hidden in the back.
Yeah.
For example, with Aave, it's what we are building there is normally you have your debt position and you take out a loan, right? And you have to provide some collateral, like a mortgage. And if the value of your collateral drops to a certain extent, then you get liquidated. Because you also have withdrew some debt beforehand, right? But what we do for you, for example, is we can like periodically on Polygon monitor this like health factor of your loan on your debt. And then every time like the price drops, then we slowly try to repay it in order to kind of like reduce your risk and avoid being liquidated and give you more of a buffer to achieve that. A similar thing we're doing with KeeperDAO on mainnet. With the difference there, it's more like a leverage position. So we decrease the risk as prices go down, and then we increase the risk when prices go up. So we kind of like, it's like an auto managed debt position. And with like Spooky Swap or Spirit Swap or also Quick Swap, what we did there is basically provide a limit order functionalities on top of existing AMMs. So normal AMMs are just like, hey, I want this token out now. But if you want to get X amount of tokens out in the future, you need something like Gelato again, right? Where you have a bot that waits for the condition and then executes it. And that's basically what we built, and they can easily plug it in there. So
and who executes this? So like on the user side, when I go to any one of these platforms, is it a feature of the platform?
Yeah. So like if you go to Spooky Swap or Spirit Swap, for example, there's a field called swap, and then there's a field called limit orders. You click on limit orders, you will see a nice powered by Gelato at the bottom. And this is basically on the UI a system that in the background levers Gelato bots to execute certain transactions at certain points in the future.
Can you not elaborate, but can you discuss like what were people using before Gelato? Like you'd go to bed and like be screwed? Is that what would happen overnight?
Yeah. So like liquidations, for example, right? So you have to set, basically what you have to do is you have to set alerts. You get these alerts. And then you go in. And then you like, there's this Twitter. There was an amazing Twitter thread from a guy who was at dinner with his girlfriend in New York, I think. And then you got like a message. And then like, I think Maker oracles always take like 1 hour or so to update. And you have basically in 1 hour time window before your funds before your position gets liquidated. And so he had to basically jump off his dinner with his girlfriend, drive home to his laptop, enter the password, and then save his position. That's basically what people did. Or they had development teams that spent like months building these custom bots themselves and then providing them. But like most development teams don't, like, what's the scarcest resource in Web3 or like in software development? Software developers, right? So like if it takes you 3 months in order to build that feature, you probably won't prioritize it only if it's like super, super essential, or you could just hook it up in like a couple of hours using Gelato, right? So basically what Gelato is, it saves time for developers at the end of the day.
So coming from finance, and we'll wrap this up in a few minutes, but so what excites you in DeFi? We're talking about DEXs, we're talking about payments, right? We're talking about exchanges, the peer-to-peer aspect of DeFi, just kind of, and I guess you did touch on it earlier, like the accessibility and like democratizing financial instruments. I'm assuming like what are you following in the space now that we're kind of teams have been working on these solutions for quite some time. DeFi boom last summer. We're kind of a year in, right? Things have settled. Things are the pace of innovation is still picking up. What are you following, and like what excites you in the space?
I think one thing that is extremely powerful and still a bit overlooked is like if you what is still the most widely used application on Ethereum? It's tokens, right? So tokens are cool. Everyone can do a token for everything and create a community around that, incentivize it, blah 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 blah. That's still the coolest use case. The problem with a token though is liquidity. Your token doesn't have liquidity and it will dump hard.
Yeah.
How did you solve it at the beginning? Like we are going through this whole like token thing right now. It's not that it's quite hard. It's not that fun. And basically what you have to pay like market makers on some shady exchanges to give them a lot of money, and they trade your tokens back and forth and provide liquidity like it is in the medieval ages, it feels like. And then like Uniswap v3 came along now, right? So Uniswap v3 enables you to provide like super highly concentrated deep liquidity for your token pair. But the problem is it moves around all the time and people have to manually set them. It's super complicated, right? So there's a system called, and disclaimer, we built it, but it's still very amazing. It's basically called Guni, and Guni is a Gelato Uniswap wrapper around like these specific Uniswap v3 liquidity provision, liquidity management positions. And basically what it allows dev teams that just launched a token to do is they can just say, hey, we launched this pool. This pool, everyone can enter, and it has a predefined range for which it provides liquidity. And then it kind of like automatically shifts and moves around the current price and can be basically reset to follow the price and always provide deep liquidity around the market. You can incentivize that with liquidity money incentives on top. And basically what this means is you control the liquidity of your token. You can get like millions of dollars worth in there. And an example, for example, InstaDepp recently launched their INS token, and they basically leveraged our system where they already over $10 million in these contracts.
Wow.
And basically what they do is they said, okay, we want to incentivize the liquidity from this price to this price. Let's say from $10 to $20, we want to provide liquidity, right? And you saw this order book, and let's say the price was here, but you saw the order book, which is like, bam. It just fed buy and sell wall right here, and they can control it. And they did one transaction with Gelato, and like the whole thing moved. So they moved like $10 million worth of liquidity in one transaction from one side to the next. And this like this power of like providing concentrated liquidity and having it automatically follow the price basically eliminates market makers. And of course, you still need it for centralized liquidity, but my hypothesis is everything will be decentralized anyways. So this is amazing for project teams because they don't have to pay weird, sketchy companies to do it for them. Of course, there are also very good ones, but I heard stories. Yeah. I heard really weird stories.
Yeah, I know. They're crazy. So wait, who manages that position? Or is it like a Gelato or the Guni type thing? Like, so the project, their tokens, they're pretty much managing the flow of liquidity there, leveraging the tools that are available?
Yeah, so basically it's like a framework where you can become a manager of this pool, and you can basically say, let's all provide liquidity in this range. And then Gelato automatically compounds the fees that this pool earns. And also you can charge a small manager fee that get automatically sent to your treasury address when you want. And what you can also do if you want to go crazy is you can say, okay, I want to follow this liquidity provision pool should follow a certain strategy, which is it should follow the 5-hour time-weighted average price of this particular pair. And then you can just define it, and then you can just say, hey, Gelato, please, every time this changes, rebalance my pool automatically. So you can also automatically rebalance the whole position around the current price based on arbitrary strategies that you define. So it's kind of like a framework to create cool strategies for Uniswap v3.
And how was the feedback?
It's pretty good. So like Uniswap v3 is complex, but yeah, like as I said, InstaDepp used it to launch their system. We are now already in talks with 2 other projects that will use us to bootstrap their token launch. So the initial usage is kind of like, hey, I want to bootstrap liquidity for my token and I want to control how. Hey, I use Guni for that. But also there's currently a proposal in the MakerDAO governance portal to add the USDC DAI Guni pool as collateral to replace USDC in MakerDAO. And this already passed the first stage. And so I'm quite excited about this. So there the feedback was quite good, but there's still a long way to go. Like, this thing is complex and there's a lot of nuances you have to follow, but we have a decent first implementation that got audited 2 times officially, 1 time unofficially, and we got a UI for that. It's hooked up on Zerion already, small alpha leak. We'll announce that pretty soon. I think it's pretty good thus far. Of course, a long way ahead, and this is still like also experimentation, right? So this is just like one use case that shows that you can easily build that thing with Gelato, right, and have a lot of functionalities just be automated.
Totally, man. I think we've gone over an hour here. Now, a lot of good info. I'm gonna have a long description for this YouTube, but we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I mean, ideally, for those watching this interview, we've went over DAO structures, we went over automation, we went over the challenges currently in DeFi, the manual process, which ultimately affects the user experience and adoption. And not only that, it impacts the developer community to come in and innovate when we have all of these siloed and fractionalized like infrastructures. Gelato here is coming in here and handling business and providing a solution across from your most basic automatic transfer to these more financial conditions, for you to trade and be effective. And not only that, take matters in your own hands. So Hilmar, where can people learn more about Gelato and get updates?
Yeah, totally. So definitely go to our Twitter at Gelato Network. There you find all the links to our website, which is also gelato.network. Then we have a Telegram chat. This is where most of the activity and the community engagement happen. But we also have Discord. We have a YouTube channel, Gelato Network, which you should check out, where we post like monthly or bi-weekly videos, kind of like varies, where we just talk about what's happened, what we did, what's the progress, what's the feedback, what's the issues. Sometimes we invite a couple of cool guests there. But yeah, there will be more content coming out. And so yeah, definitely subscribe to those.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for taking time out of your day. I know you're with your team. Hopefully you get to enjoy them for a little bit longer. Oh, last thing. Yeah. ECC. Was that positive? Like, how was that experience? Are we back in the swing of things? Everybody's been, secluded for over 15 months. And I went to the Bitcoin conference, which was crazy. You went to ECC. Like, what was the vibe there, the sentiment?
Yeah, for me, it was very, very positive. Like, people are looking for investment opportunities. People are looking to collaborate together. We sat down with amazing projects like Maker or other teams and brainstormed about ideas. Everyone is kind of like working together. New ideas were pitched. So it feels like we're in the renaissance of DeFi here. And Ethereum or like Web3 in general, a lot of other networks also were present as well. And the whole vibe was very friendly. And I think everyone was kind of like happy to meet in person, and it was great to see some faces. And yeah, we got like investors. We never saw them before. Like, and yeah. I met this guy and he invested in Gelato, and we met the first time. I actually had my first investors meeting in person. Like, I think I never had like really serious ones in person. It was always video calls, so that was
for sure. Was it crowded, like hundreds, thousands? How big was the crowd there?
It was pretty, like, very hard to say how many people, because I also just went from one meeting to another, so I was always in just like some smaller rooms, but it was pretty crowded. So upper hundreds, lower thousands, something like that. I was assuming.
Nice. So it seems like pretty active, pretty engaging there.
Yeah, right.
Good, man. Well, again, Hilmar here, co-founder of Gelato Network. Thank you for chatting about, all the things that our audience wants to learn and understand, whether you're just coming into the space, you're a novice, you're an expert investor, developer. I think this is kind of one of my favorite actually discussions in terms of talking about everything as a whole and how it affects each other. And not only that, like your views and insights into how to make it better, right? So perspective. So I appreciate that. And we hope to, if not have you back, somebody from your team. We do this every month, so we'd love to extend another invite and keep updated with Gelato.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking forward.
All right. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Reimagine 2021. Hopefully you're enjoying the conference, and we'll see you again. Thank you.